Welcome to the wild world of the diagnostic laboratory industry, where we focus on science, compliance, sales, marketing, and self-mastery. Welcome to Lab Results with Blake. I'm your host, Blake Bork. Good morning, everyone. Hope your day has started off as good as mine. I listened to my watch this morning. I have this Garmin watch that basically predicts almost every move of my life. And yesterday it told me that my recovery time had slowed. I had some pretty tough workouts on Friday and on Saturday, but my recovery time had slowed because of stress. And we often think that Saturday and Sunday, the weekends, we're going to recover. But if you look at my Saturday schedule or you look at my Sunday schedule, it's probably a lot like yours if you have kids with birthdays and baby showers and college football games and tailgating. We have a fifth wheel, so we camp out at Cajun Field to watch the games. My daughter's in soccer. It was an early soccer game on Saturday. And you still have to get it all in, the time with the family, the time for the body, the time for the prayer and the worship, church on Sunday. And then we have, baby showers, baby sprinkles, and then a birthday party for my cousin and for my grandfather. And, when you're around family too, you pick up triggers and stress throughout the entire experience. So it sometimes isn't relaxing to be around your family at some of those events too, especially if sometimes the family can be a little dysfunctional, and you have to tolerate some behaviors that you don't normally tolerate in your own life. And so I wake up Monday morning and my watch is like, whoa, you didn't sleep well, and your training is still behind, or your recovery is still behind. So I'm going to work out this afternoon. So instead of working out, I had an extra worship hour, a little bit extra time inside the worship hour. I listened or watched Luke on Amazon, and then I came and read about him. I posted in my accountability group. I bring my daughter to school and come back home, have a meeting with my wife about what we got to accomplish this week. We get on the same page, our same page meeting. Got a chance to spend some time with Bruce already this morning. And so for all intents and purposes, day's going great, right? If I don't pick up and deposit some of those triggers from this weekend, I'm going to carry that energy and those triggers into this week. And so one of the things I had to do to flush it out is I went through this journaling process that I learned in 2017. I've been doing it off and on for the last 6 years. Right now, mainly on. It's called a stack. And I was able to take a story that I was still aggravated about that happened this week. It was still in the back of my mind. And I was able to dissect it, stack it, and come out with a gift on the other end of it. And the gift for me was whatever we accept, we tolerate. So we'll tolerate whatever we accept. So as we pick up our standards inside of our own life, we pick up standards in the way that we sell, and the way that we go about business, and the way that we treat our spouses and our children, the information that will allow penetrate our homes, right? The way that we censor the world from our children, the words that are coming out of my mouth, right? If I pick up my standard and I elevate it, there are going to be times where I'm going to be tolerating others who are not at that standard, right? And it just made me think through that stack process how many times I've been the one who's been tolerated. And I'll focus it back to sales and back to labs specifically. The next stage in our collision-based sales model, recap, communicate a message, capture permission, convert mindset. We're now having to give someone something to do. We have to compel them to action, right? Compel to action. And the reason why this is important is because we have communicated this message, and we respected the position. We asked for permission. We've got it rooted in the painful process. We've promised a new possibility. We really understood who they were in their worldview, and we've recognized who they are inside of their self view. And we're standing shoulder to shoulder with them right now, looking to solve this problem. But they got to do some stuff so we know that they're vested. They got to do some stuff so that way they also get to Ronald Reagan us. When I say Ronald Reagan, I mean trust but verify. They've trusted what we said because we connected with them clinically. But now it's time for them to verify that our processes are what we've said they're going to be. And so when we compel them to action, I'm telling you right now, if they go out and they experience something that isn't what you promised them, if they go out and experience something that isn't the picture that you painted, if you promised a primrose path, if you've promised them rainbows and unicorns, butterflies and cotton candy, and they don't get that, if they get normal reality, then you're done. They're not going to trust you anymore because this was supposed to be super easy. They trusted you, they followed your advice, and you're just like everybody else. And so now the door's slammed on you. You got them to say yes, they're not going to say yes. And in fact, it's even worse. They're not even going to return your phone call. They ghost you. So if you take a look, everybody wants to learn from their wins, right? I like to learn from my losses too. And so when you look at the losses, the amount of times that people have ghosted you, or they haven't had the momentum that you thought, you need to go back and review the tape. Look at the game tape in your mind and the situation. Look at what was communicated and see with your own eye, right, where you overpromised and underdelivered, where when they went and did the things that you told them they needed to do, that it wasn't as you described it. And this is one of the reasons why in the compel to action piece, I try to use less words and more pictures. I try to use processes. I want to have workflows and diagrams. And I need to make sure that everyone inside of the organization is on the same page with what's going to happen and when it's going to happen and the timing around it. I also try to simplify the processes as much as possible. And so I don't teach the whole process to the clinic at the same time. What I mean by that is a lot of salespeople will compel to action and they'll have them be compelled to do an order. And then they come right behind them and they tell them about what it's going to take to pull down results or receive results. Well, the test results aren't ready yet. So what I like to do is focus an order day and compel them to action to actually go in, get the requisition form, go inside of something called Shadowbox, go in something, maybe the portal, and order electronically, depending on the lab you're using. Get that order in, put the patient demographics in, put the insurance, put the actual order in, and then when the report is ready, I want to pre-schedule the report review, because then I need to compel them to action to actually go and pull down the report, whether the report was faxed, old school, or if it's actually in a results portal, or if it's showing up inside of their EMR because you have an HL7 interface. We need to compel them to action, and it's two different processes. And oftentimes, guys, it could also be two different employees in the doctor's office, right? So as we're asking questions and we're uncovering all of this, it's super important that we understand that not everyone in the doctor's office does the same thing. You very well could have Betty, that's the right-hand man and the left-hand woman of the doctor, and or the provider, and is they're doing data entry and ordering all of the tests. But then Mr. Brent is over here because in the morning he knows results are up and his job is to go into the portal and get them all placed into the EMR, EHR. Well, if you're not there asking those questions, and if you don't have a workflow diagram of what that process is going to look like, and ask who has ownership and responsibility over these areas, you don't know how to compel to action the sum of the parts. Every crinkle, every wrinkle needs to be greased. And so you have to get in there and make sure that you're literally working on these processes. And it's unfortunate to see salespeople duck away from that and hide, because that's actually why you're supposed to be a good salesperson. You're not a good salesperson because you convince someone to sign a piece of paper and say they're going to send you samples. You're a good salesperson when you can sell yourself side by side with an MA, and you can connect with them on a human level and have them understand why your test is so important for patient care, to where they feel good because they're doing a good job, right? You're a good salesperson when you can sell yourself side by side with a person who is pulling down the reports, and they know it's important for them to pull the reports down and get into the EMR correctly, because that's improving patient care and they're important inside of the process. And you validate it and you coach it and you create competence. This compel to action piece is super important because you're also correcting behaviors now. This is literally the secret sauce. If you just go there with a pre-filled out form and say, sign here, doc, I'll take care of the rest of it, you're going to fall flat on your face because that's not the truth. Because ultimately, they're doing the ordering, they're doing the specimen preparation, they're doing the shipping, they're giving me all the patient billing information and the demographics. They're also fielding complaints typically first whenever they go through a billing cycle, right? Patients call the doctor's office and say, hey, why the hell did I get a $730 bill for this respiratory test? We didn't talk about that. That's not what I thought I was getting. They just took money out of my HSA. Did you happen to mention that to the doctor's office so they could run it by the patient, considering now we have this no surprises act out there? Did you compel them to action in having them pull out your billing card, your rack card, or your business card, so that way the patient calls the billing hotline as opposed to complaining to the doctor's office? Do you have an instruction sheet to show the components of your billing life cycle and how the patient may receive an EOB and how you're in network or you're out of network or your cash pay, how that actually works? Because if you don't, you're sabotaging your actual results. And that's the important piece with compel to action, is that you have to have clarity and you have to have organization and you got to have timing, but you've got to be able to put a vision out there. And this is the actual clinic's opportunity to be able to do the things you told them, and they're going to get the result that's expected. All right. I recommend that this is what you sell. Like, you literally sell the Pepsi challenge. I recommend that you sell the 5 to 10 samples that you're going to run and bill appropriately. No free lunches here. No free lunches here. No free services, no inducement, but that they give you a shot for 5 to 10 patients. So that way you have an opportunity to be able to train for competence, train for compliance on ordering the samples, but you also have a good data set for report review. So if you imagine you're sitting down with who's ordering and going over how to properly fill out a requisition form and how to put issue date on there, the actual data testing, and when the sample was collected, and 2 identifiers on the sample, and that the actual process of filling out and providing the DX codes and filling out the requisition form properly for CPT codes is all there. Okay. The phase sheets attached, your workflow's done and it's shipped correctly. And you've seen them do all of this. That's like check boxes. You have a little list and you go through it and you make sure they got it all done. They do it a couple of times. You show them one time, they watch one, they do one, and then you get somebody else in the office to come by and then they teach one. Then on a separate day, you go back because they need to see your face, and you go back. You're not buying expensive lunches, man. Maybe a cup of coffee, maybe some cake pops and coffee, right? Cheap, inexpensive way to be able to get their attention. You're training, so it's appropriate. We sit there, we have some coffee, we have a cake pop. Now we're going over report reviews. Now the provider may not have questions on the spot, so you got to be prepared to put those questions out there, right? So you need to be able to have gone into your clinical training mind and have these reports. I like to have a PhD or an MD available for those calls, depending on the account size and the complexity. But as you learn clinical and you can explain your own reports, those frequently asked questions asked by other providers need to be stated and said to this provider, because they may not be thinking or they may not like asking questions. Not everyone likes asking questions. Some people feel stupid when they ask a question. Some people feel dumb if they don't have the answers. And so if you have a doctor or a provider who is staring at a brand new process and they are unwilling to ask you questions, that is a telltale sign that person is stuck in the knowing mode and they're not learning presently. And because they're not learning, when they go out and actually try to explain this and they get in front of a patient and a patient asks them a question and they're not prepared to answer it, they will never order from you again. They will never order from you again. So you have to import the right questions. You have to be a teacher and a leader when you're explaining these reports. You have to realize that not every doctor, every provider has the time to think about what the hell you're talking about. They don't have the time to take it in there, but you're pitching at them between freaking rooms, right? If you're not providing value, you're stealing their time, but then also you're giving them a false sense of security to take that report into the room without actually going over those frequently asked questions and how they can actually implement it, right? So this takes as much art as it takes science. And this takes practice, and it takes frequency, and it takes you having a high level of integrity and being able to stand in the pocket and actually compel someone to action, because you know it's the only way they're going to get compliance. The patient on the other end, your obligation is for you to train the staff appropriately and for them to be able to pull these reports down and actually use the information that's on the reports. That's the most important aspect of diagnostic laboratory testing, is that the information on the reports are used. So take that and see where you can implement this inside of your sales life today. Where can you compel someone to action after you've communicated your message, you've captured permission, and you've converted their mindset? If you communicate a message and then compel to action, all you're doing is giving somebody busy work because they haven't even agreed to it, and then they won't do it. If you communicate your message and you capture their permission, but you haven't converted their mindset, they don't know why they're being compelled to action, and so then they won't do it. And if you go through the first steps of the process, 3 steps of the process perfectly, and then you compel them to action, but when they get there, they're alone and they feel like you've abandoned them, they're going to ghost you because they don't trust you anymore, because you sent them off to do something. They were scared and alone. They couldn't figure it out. They feel like they wasted their time, and now they're going to resent you for it. So where in your life can you implement these principles to help you foster healthy relationships where your clients are going to say, thank you, I'm grateful. That was easier than I thought. I appreciate your help. My staff loves this process. Our patients are getting better care. Wow, I really feel informed. I've been empowered by your training. You guys have everything covered. Thank you so much for drawing that diagram. I never realized it could be this easy. These are all things that I have heard in my past when I do this process correctly. Let's see where yours goes. Thank you so much. Talk to you again tomorrow. You've been listening to Lab Results with Blake, with your host, Blake Bork. Please like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Remember, greatness is contagious.